you'd led DU's strategic issues panels over a fair period of time, where you'd take a single issue each year, a really almost intractable issue, whether it was election reform or it was immigration, or and you'd get a panel of maybe 20 people, and they'd go from political views from the far left to the far right. And by the end of it, after people had really been educated on the issues, they were coming closer and closer together. And I'd watched that, and I said, oh, this is good. And so I thought, you would be clearly the guy to do it. A lot of places, they go outside to find somebody, whatever, which I think has a number of problems with it typically. So I sat down with you.
We did.
And we talked. And one of the things I discovered was that you were in that point where you were in your heaviest workload period, because you were sort of finishing up one report where you're trying to get all the bobbing heads together and write it up at the same time, and then get a consensus conclusion on it. And not easy to do, and you were doing that. How could you take on something else? Well, we talked about that for a while. I told you how critical I really thought it was for the university. I could tell that you, if anybody understood how critical it was, you did. So I just kept after you.
Yes, you did.
Yes, and you finally said, okay, I'll double my workload, get this thing started. And you did. Yeah. And I thank you for that. I can't thank you enough, frankly. And then, of course, I realized that you don't execute something like this, which on such a sensitive topic, over the chancellor's head or under the chancellor's head. So the next step was to approach Bob Coombe, and Bob was very cautious on it. But as I had hoped, he was quite intrigued by the idea, and particularly by the idea that you would head it, because he knew the same things I knew. Okay. So he called you to discuss it.
He did. And
there was a conclusion. We went ahead, and we set up a 20-person panel, and it had 5 faculty and 2 deans, the CFO, the admissions vice chancellor, provost, and then we had 5 thoughtful community members, and the trustee, and you. And as I remember at the time, you were a trustee, a professor, dean emeritus of the Daniels School, and a former CFO of the university.
Couldn't hold a job.
Yeah, couldn't hold a job, but as they say, you did have some credentials. Okay, so, and the whole darn thing worked out. I mean, it really worked well. And Bob Coombe and I attended every session.
You sure did.
Sat side by side at every session.
But you were not on the panel itself.
But we weren't on the panel.
Right.
We didn't speak. Well, actually, I think you had me lead it off.
I did.
But other than that, I never said a word.
Right.
Bob didn't say a word. And you brought in 17 speakers, as I remember. And these people were all experts on various parts of the higher education and competition and larger picture arena.
Correct. Outside the tent.
Outside the tent. They were all outside the tent people.
Right.
Exactly. And that was really good, because and then you assign certain readings and so on, and so we got to a point where everybody understood the issues. Their biases started to melt away because they understood a lot more about it.
That's right.
And the same thing you had proven with your other issues. So there we were, and I would say that I thought that your handling of the group was masterful. And I thought that the discussion there were times when there was pretty heated debate, but it was always civil. And we got to the end, and you led everybody to consensus on it. Remarkable achievement, frankly. And it was called Unsettling Times, Higher Education in an Era of Change. And, and that report started to leak out nationally. And it was basically required reading at every significant university and college in the country, and it got rave reviews, and it really raised DU stature right there, okay? Because we had done something thoughtful that a lot of them said, well, we should have done this, right? And so that was good stuff. But, you know, I would say to you that that was the beginning of the future, because it was setting a platform for a full-blown strategic plan.